Hey there, welcome to our AP Legal Zone podcast, brought to you by AP Lawyers. We are your top fix for all weekly law updates, including family, immigration, wills, and estates law. Just a friendly reminder, we are not your lawyers, and everything contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as legal advice. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about our new episodes.
Hello, I'm Angela Princewell.
And I'm Shireen Abdi.
And our topic today is vaccination and the effect it can have on parenting. So, Shireen, we've talked about, I believe we have a podcast where we previously talked about, vaccination in the context of parents agreeing to children being vaccinated and things like that, right? So what we've noticed is we've had, in the last little while, we've had a few clients that have had issues with their parenting time and they're seeking advice from us as to what to do, and on both sides, right? So, I know the most recent one, Shireen, was your matter where dad's parenting time was being suspended because he was unvaccinated, correct?
Yes, exactly. Mother had concerns that because he wasn't vaccinated, despite that the children were vaccinated, that it was warranted that his parenting time should be suspended.
Yeah, and clearly we don't think as a general rule that that's reasonable, but like all things family law, it has to be on a case by case. You have to review the person's situation. In this instant, with Shireen's client, we're talking about someone that works from home for the most of the time, so has very little interaction with the public, follows all public health protocols, but for personal reasons has refused to be vaccinated. The child's vaccinated in this case. But interestingly, there's a decision out of Quebec that we found very interesting. And in that case, the dad's, I believe it was dad, right? Dad's parenting time.
Dad, had I think alternate weekends, or, mom had a primary residence. It's about 12-and-a-half-year-old child.
Yeah.
And dad was unvaccinated, child was vaccinated, and mom was vaccinated. And she also had a spouse who was vaccinated and two young children that, given their age, weren't not able to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And she was seeking that parenting time would be suspended because, well, amongst other concerns that, father had been reckless in terms of the mandates in place and things like that. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, do you want to kind of render out how that decision played out?
The ultimate decision is heartbreaking because anytime parenting time is suspended, no one wins. The child doesn't. The child needs to have time with the dad, and just to have that suspended in that way wasn't exactly a decision that anyone would be thrilled by. But yeah, so in that case, the court ordered a full suspension of parenting time for an extended period of time, which was very surprising, given that as a general rule, a child spending time with both parents is considered in their best interest. A major factor in this case, though, is not just the unvaccinated, the status of being vaccinated versus unvaccinated. A lot went to the fact that the dad in this case was not following public health protocols.
Yeah, I think, again, to touch on your point, it is a case-by-case scenario. Obviously, where, one party is, well, I shouldn't say obviously, because, you run the risk sometimes, but if there is a parent that is following all of the mandates, is being very careful, and maybe by circumstances throughout their own health, don't feel like, even on the advice of their own doctors, have medical exemptions against the vaccine, that shouldn't be enough to prevent parenting time, or exactly. I don't feel like it's appropriate.
You know what the trend I'm noticing? I know people that have now lost their jobs as a result of not being vaccinated. Clearly in Ontario, you cannot go to the gym now. If you're not vaccinated, you can't go into restaurants. And now you can't see your children as well. So, I am not an anti-vaxxer by any stretch of the imagination. I actually believe in the science. I don't know how 100% anyone is accurate about it at this point, but I think it's the best is the best we have at this point. So I do support it, but it's troubling to see how, if people want to exercise their right to not be vaccinated, the effects can be devastating, be from losing their jobs to,
not having parenting time.
That's crazy, to not having parenting time. Now,
or
something
substantially smaller parenting time, maybe even additional measures. Like,
you know what I'm wondering, Shireen, though?
Yeah.
You know what just popped into my head is, what if in the future, for people that have lost their jobs now and are unable to pay child support, I can definitely see the courts not being kind to them, because they're going to impute income to you regardless, because you lost your job because you refused to take
decision
the
not to
vaccine.
get vaccinated. Of course, if you have a medical exemptions, to be honest, most people wouldn't lose their jobs, because
this is people that have chosen. And again, we weren't forced to, you're recommended to. And then when you choose to not take the vaccine, looks like the consequences are pretty dire.
Exactly. I don't really know if I necessarily agree. Again, where a parent is following the necessary guidelines.
Yes.
It has a personal choice not to be vaccinated. I mean,
I think so.
I'm careful with my words, because I don't want to come off as an individual.
No, but I mean, we're lawyers,
and
I mean, if there's something that's ingrained through several years of law school, or if there's one reason why a lot of us went into the law, is we want to be able to uphold people's rights and freedoms.
Exactly.
We live in a country where people are free, and I mean, I can talk about my status very clearly. I am vaccinated. As I said earlier, I believe in the health measures. It's just troubling as I sit back and watch other people exercise their rights that they were told they could, now the consequences. So I did find the reducing of parenting time to be a very troubling decision.
Very troubling. Understandable, maybe public shared spaces and things like that, but to not be able to see your children,
the child at all. I expected the courts to say, and again,
but it was to be reviewed technically in this decision.
But it was still.
It's the kind of aftermath that would follow, and this is not the only decision like that.
Yes.
That suspends parenting time for any, and the courts also made it clear that normally parenting time would be in the best interest of the child, but they had to look at the case by case and the circumstance. Mother had 2 young children that weren't vaccinated, and so
and dad wasn't following the public health. I think that's a
guidelines.
Huge factor. The fact
exactly, and I guess you would have to obviously have more substantial evidence, because if you're saying dad's not following government guidelines,
I think in this specific case, I think they had social media posts that kind of showed his sentiment about the public health guidelines. So there are people that don't want to get vaccinated and also don't believe in following any of the public health guidelines. Then there's that risk of losing your parenting time, right? But if I think a fair balance would be, if someone's following the public health protocols and they continue to do so, if they refuse to get vaccinated, I don't think that they should face such dire consequences as losing parenting time with their child.
And if you look at maybe your situation of the party working from home, sometimes it, again, there's different circumstances.
I mean, I do know someone personally that has lost their job, even though they got the job during the pandemic. It's been almost 2 years of having this job. They've never met any of their colleagues, the people that hired them. None of that. It's been completely 100% work from home. And there's not been any talk about her coming in office. But because of medical reasons, she chose not to get vaccinated. Not enough to get an exemption, but just concerns that she had medically because of other issues. She was fired from her job.
Yeah, I've heard many stories like that, and it's upsetting. Especially
so if you have a child support obligation, that concerns me, because your child support obligation continues, and now maybe parenting time is potentially at risk here.
Yeah, and in this circumstance, the judge also said time can be cured if dad went and got vaccinated.
But that's almost like forcing dad's hand now.
Exactly.
You're essentially saying, go get vaccinated so you can see your child. Go.
Exactly.
I mean, again,
and the government, at the end of the day, the government mandates are enough for the judges. They strongly encourage. At the end of the day, they don't have. They only have the data that supports that it is promoting more beneficial for people to be vaccinated,
I agree.
obviously. So yeah, that's kind of
They're
where
not
their
going to
view
go
stems from.
against public health directives.
Yes, and
that's
that-
what people need to remember, that because the public health directive now is get vaccinated yourself. If you're trying to get into an argument about your kids getting vaccinated, chances are they're going to order that your kids get vaccinated. So you really have to have overwhelming evidence to prevent it. But I think the best thing is also to make sure that you're not expressing sentiments that look like you're throwing every caution to the wind and not following at least some precautions to keep yourself
in that
safe.
circumstance, there was lots of content on the social media
Yeah.
about being an anti-vaxxer and like reservations regarding the vaccine itself and the effective use of it. So I mean, yeah, if maybe that is your position, maybe don't be so outward about it.
But again, then the question comes back, Sherry, where is your freedom, right?
It's infringement.
And you know, the interesting thing is some people say things on social media that they don't even exactly mean, though. They're
exactly,
just
like maybe
ranting.
just reposting or something. But it'd be interesting to see once these guidelines, like there are talks about lifting some restrictions and, so it'd be interesting to see kind of the direction the court takes with these kinds of cases.
In that case, they had said, I think the review date is February 8th. So I think that's on Tuesday. I mean, this is a Quebec case. I don't think Quebec is relaxing at the same rate as Ontario. So it remains to be seen what happens then, right? Would they extend it for another month until everything's fully open?
And maybe dad has, I don't know, since been vaccinated. So I doubt it, but we never know.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll come back on an update
and see how it goes. Well, hopefully, you know what I hope? I hope COVID goes away and we don't have to talk about this anymore. But thanks, guys. I think that's all we have to say today. Just be very mindful that your choice regarding vaccinations could actually have an effect one way or another on parenting. And and to maintain a very balanced view, I want to add that for parents that are fully vaccinated, kids are vaccinated, and you have concerns about the other side having, anti-vaccination rules, and you have concerns about the other side putting your child into danger, we respect that, we understand. And our role is always to kind of find that middle point where the best interest of the child is protected and the health and safety of everybody involved is kind of taken care of as well.
Exactly.
All right, guys, on that note, we'll say bye for now.
Take care.
Thanks for listening and joining us in the AP Legal Zone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more episodes by searching AP Legal Zone on anywhere you watch podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast today so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about any new episodes.